What would you do if a blizzard hit in the middle of the night, the wind slicing through every crack, your breath freezing right in front of you, and not a single modern tool in your hands? In the Middle Ages, that wasn't a hypothetical scenario. It was daily reality. Survival didn't depend on flashlights, heaters, or smartphones, but on sharp instincts, the memory of the body, and the ability to turn raw materials into life-saving tools. Every family, every group of hunters or nomads had to prepare with absolute care, because one small mistake could turn a cold winter night into a death sentence. Medieval people learned to read the wind, feel the ground, and make use of clay, dry grass, stone, wood, and vines, transforming what seemed worthless into shields against death. They didn't wait for rescue. They created everything they needed to stay alive, from hunting traps and fire to shelter and food preservation systems. And it was this creativity in the face of hardship that passed down a wealth of skills that today's nature lovers, bushcrafters, and off-grid adventurers can still learn from. If you've ever wondered whether you could survive when every convenience disappears, let this story open that door. Understand materials, sharpen your skills, and believe that human hands, combined with knowledge and experience, will always find a way forward. If you found this helpful, hit like or leave a comment to share your thoughts. Your experiences are also a way to keep the flame of survival alive. Before any firearm or bow ever existed, survival in the forests, open fields, and mountain slopes of the Middle Ages relied entirely on small, flexible, and trustworthy tools, simple enough to carry anywhere, yet powerful enough to save a life instantly. Among them, the shepherd's sling, a leather pouch and cord used to throw stones, and the clever slingshot traps were the secret weapons of people living close to the woods and grasslands. These weren't the weapons of knights or soldiers. They were the survival tools of children, herders, and villagers who faced wild animals and the risk of hunger and cold every single day. With nothing more than cord, leather, and a stone, young boys trained from childhood could knock down hunting birds, even small bears, all while staying silent so they wouldn't attract something larger and more dangerous. Slingshot traps were just as sophisticated, a young sapling bent under tension, fitted with a line and bait, and the moment an animal stepped wrong, the trap snapped tight and lifted the prey off the ground. No steel, no forge. Just patience, an understanding of animal behavior, and skilled hands. These seemingly simple tools didn't just help people survive winter and wilderness. They sharpened the mind, the reflexes, and courage itself. Today, bushcrafters and survivalists still study these techniques, proving one truth. Sometimes the greatest power comes from the smallest things. In the medieval world, fire wasn't just warmth. It was the thin border between life and death. One stormy night with blizzards howling, rain pounding, and your hands shaking for just a moment, the fire could go out. And when it did, you would freeze or starve right in front of your own eyes. That's why nomads, guards, and villagers always carried tinderboxes and flint striker kits, tiny tools with so much power that a single spark could save a life. The kit held flint, a carbon steel striker, and char cloth, a smoke-cured fabric ready to catch even the smallest spark and turn it into living fire. With a skilled strike, a tiny spark would leap onto the char cloth, smolder instead of burning instantly, then be transferred into dry straw, bark, or animal fibers. And with one breath, one precise motion, the flame would bloom, and send light and warmth across the entire camp. What's incredible is that this kit belonged to everyone. From poor village alleys to noble encampments, everyone carried one because everyone knew the truth. A single night without fire meant becoming another victim of cold and hunger. Today, survivalists and reenactors still study these techniques, a reminder that survival power sometimes comes from the smallest things that seem insignificant. Shocking twist. Many people don't realize that with this tiny kit, medieval people could start fire in heavy rain, freezing fog, and deep snow, conditions where even modern tools sometimes fail. It proves one thing: knowledge and skill can be stronger than the newest technology. If you've ever thought a lighter is all I need, leave a comment and share your experience. Sometimes one small spark is enough to change an entire survival story. On stormy nights, when char cloth is soaked and the tinderbox fails, the bow drill becomes the true line that decides who lives and who dies. With no flint, no ready flame, a single mistake can turn a warm meal into a freezing, starving night that threatens your life. The bow drill, an ancient yet sophisticated tool, is a combination of knowledge, patience, and the skill of your own hands. It uses a spindle, a hearthboard, a bow, a bearing block, and a bit of tinder, all made from wood and natural cordage, with no metal at all. As the spindle spins, the friction between it and the hearthboard creates black dust that slowly ignites into a tiny ember, a spark of survival in the darkness of forest and winter. The challenge isn't the mechanism, but the materials and the skill. Too hard, too soft, uneven pressure, and no flame will rise. You could stand there drenched in sweat, watching your dinner and your warmth vanish into the cold air. Children in the village were taught from an early age, not for play, but to understand survival's value and the constant risk of death. A small ember isn't just fire. It is food, heat, survival itself, and anyone who masters the technique has a powerful advantage in staying alive. Today, the bow drill is still considered by bushcrafters the ultimate test of survival skill, creating fire with nothing but your hands, wood, and memory. It reminds us of one crucial truth. When everything else fails, real skill is what decides whether you live or die. Before cast iron stoves or steel pots existed, medieval people had to rely on simplicity and ingenuity to cook, smoke, and dry food in the wilderness or across cold open fields. The folding wooden tripod, with just 3 wooden stakes, a few carved notches, and a cord, is the perfect example of timeless survival engineering. Built in just a few minutes, it becomes a cooking frame, a meat-smoking rack, and a vegetable drying stand all at once, right in the middle of the wild. No nails, no metal, just intelligence and skilled hands. The true strength of the tripod lies in its absolute flexibility. When moving through dense forest or searching for new shelter after a snowstorm, the tripod can be dismantled, tied neatly to the shoulder, and reassembled somewhere else without wasting precious time. Medieval people understood that every second mattered, and every tool had to be multifunctional because it determined meals, warmth, and survival. Today, bushcrafters and survivalists still practice this technique, not only for cooking, but to train adaptability in harsh environments. A wooden frame, a few minutes to set up, and you can keep living, keep moving, and keep using nature to stay alive. This isn't just a tool. It is the essence of survival, the intelligence of humans facing the wild, and proof that sometimes simplicity is the strongest force of all. In the Middle Ages, when winter stretched endlessly and sunlight slipped through for only a few hours each day, food preservation was one of humanity's quiet miracles. They had no electricity, no ice, no modern refrigerators, only earth, water, straw, and a refined imagination. The clay pot refrigerator, or zeerpot, was the secret that kept milk, vegetables, and even meat fresh for an entire week in the wilderness. The principle was simple, yet astonishing. 2 clay pots, one placed inside the other, with the gap between them filled with damp sand. As water evaporated through the porous outer pot, it drew heat away from the inner one, cooling the food as if nature itself had chosen to help. Not only that, but when winter grew so harsh that snow piled thick and wind cut straight through thatched roofs, underground root cellars became lifesavers. Potatoes, carrots, cabbage, and apples were arranged in layers of straw, stone, and wood, keeping the food fresh and preventing it from freezing solid. The remarkable thing is that in many cases, this ancient trick still outperforms modern refrigerators when used in forests or cold mountain regions where electricity and ice are scarce. This story isn't just a technique, it's the mystery and legend of survival, where humans learn to listen to the earth, water, and the passing of time to make it through long winters, hunger, and war. Today, those interested in bushcraft or off-grid living still try to recreate this method, learning from ancient wisdom instead of machines. If you found this fascinating, leave a comment and share where you'd try this ancient trick, in the woods or right in your backyard. Because sometimes old survival methods teach us far more than modern technology ever could. In the dense forests or freezing open fields of the medieval world, a poorly built shelter or an unstable roof could mean death in a blizzard. Medieval people understood that survival didn't depend on luck, but on skill, awareness, and intelligence. With just a hatchet, a few wooden stakes, vines, bark, or strips of animal sinew, they could build structures that were sturdy, flexible, and long-lasting, sometimes even more durable than modern cabins. The process began with the frame. 3 or 4 solid wooden trunks, cut, sharpened, and driven deep into the ground to form the main posts. Crossbeams were tied with vines, bark, or twisted plant fibers, reinforced with carefully placed wooden pegs, creating stability without nails or glue. The roof was woven from branches and layered with leaves, bark, or straw, serving as protection against rain, wind, and cold. Even in winter, layers of mud, moss, or decomposed plant matter were packed into the gaps for insulation, while smoke escaped from a small hearth inside. The incredible part is that everything was built entirely by hand, no metal, no machinery, yet strong enough to withstand long winters and fierce snowstorms. This wasn't just technique, it was survival instinct, where intelligence and craftsmanship decided whether you lived or died. Today, bushcrafters still practice this method, challenging themselves in the wild to remember that sometimes simplicity and human ingenuity far surpass modern technology. In the medieval era, water wasn't always a source of life. Sometimes it was a death sentence. A single cup of dirty water from a river, lake, or puddle could kill you within days, bringing fever, dysentery, or illnesses that medicine of the time couldn't cure. That's why medieval people learned to turn simple materials into a remarkable filtration system. With only earth, sand, gravel, charcoal, and a layer of cloth or moss, they created safe filters that allowed them to drink water while minimizing the risk of disease. a survival science that existed long before modern science. They layered it carefully. Coarse gravel to catch large debris, fine sand to remove cloudiness, crushed charcoal to absorb odor and bacteria, and finally cloth or moss as a protective membrane. Water passed through slowly, drop by drop, but once it emerged from the system, it became clear, safer, and drinkable. Something that seemed simple could determine the survival of an entire family or a group of hunters in the wilderness. Today, these techniques are still practiced by survivalists, bushcrafters, and off-grid communities, proving that knowledge, observation, and experimentation born from hardship can sometimes surpass modern technology. If you found this interesting, leave a comment. Would you dare try building a filter the ancient way? Who knows? One piece of old wisdom might save your life in an unexpected situation. In deep forests or harsh open lands, the ones who survived weren't those who owned the most tools, but those who knew how to turn the little they had into weapons of survival. When a trap broke, when the tinderbox was drenched, or when a tripod snapped in the middle of a snowstorm, only those who knew how to improvise, repair, and make use of whatever was available could keep going. They used vines, branches, straw, bark, or animal sinew to rebuild traps, rekindle fire, or reconstruct cooking frames, while others could only stand and watch in despair. This wasn't just skill. It was the politics of survival, the ability to show off craftsmanship and intelligence in brutal nature, proving who truly deserved to live. A capable medieval survivor didn't just endure. They made a difference with their hands and mind, turning forests, snow, and storms into allies instead of enemies. Their survival philosophy was simple but powerful. Survival isn't having tools, it's knowing how to make them count. One vine, one branch, one spark of creativity. Any of these could determine a meal, warmth, or even life itself. Today, these techniques are still practiced by bushcrafters, survivalists, and off-grid communities, serving as a silent lesson in patience, intelligence, and adaptability. If you think you're brave enough, leave a comment. Do you believe that, in the wild, you could turn anything into a survival tool the way medieval people did? When you look back at the tools and survival techniques of the medieval world, you realize a shocking truth. These seemingly simple methods once saved thousands of lives in freezing winters, blizzards, and wild forests. It wasn't the wealthy or the ones with the most modern tools who survived. It was those who understood, practiced, and applied skills with their own hands and minds. Slings, traps, tinder boxes, bow drills, tripods, clay pot refrigerators, or charcoal and sand water filters. Each tool tells a story of intelligence, patience, and courage. What's incredible is that these skills don't belong only to the past. Today, bushcrafters, survivalists, and off-grid communities still learn and use them in real situations, starting fire in storms, building shelters deep in the woods, filtering water from rivers, or preserving food without electricity or refrigerators. Once again, they prove that survival isn't having tools. It's knowing how to make them count. And here's the question you need to answer for yourself. Will you learn, practice, and keep that survival flame alive, or ignore it and depend solely on modern conveniences? These skills, though ancient, aren't just knowledge. They are a way of survival, showing that humans, when they understand and respect nature, can always find a way forward no matter how harsh the environment. If you found this video helpful, Leave a comment sharing which survival skill or technique you'd like to try. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss more incredible stories of intelligence and survival from the past to the present.